Hey, good people. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the next episode of the In the Room podcast with Loving Life. I'm your host, founder, and CEO, LaKesha Lorene, and I am super, super excited to have our next guest with us today. She is an actress, a writer, and an award-winning producer, Joan Iyiola. Welcome, Joan.
Hello, hi LaKesha. How lovely to have. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's lovely for you to have you. We're so excited to have you. So you are from across the pond, correct? You are in London right now.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Awesome. So I was first introduced to your work from your newest film, Dilapo is Fine, which is just a powerful breakthrough film for you that's really shattering records across many great film festivals. And I saw it as the HBO Short Film Award winner of the American Black Film Festival. So tell us a little bit about your journey in creating that film. What was the inspiration?
Gosh, it's a wonderful journey, and every time I get to recall it, I kind of want to pinch myself that this is what's happened with this film, because you always have ideas or what the genesis of an idea is, but you never really expect it to be on the ride that Dolapo is Fine currently is. So a lot of love and a lot of thanks and blessings for the time that we're in. It began as, so the co-writer of Dilapo is Fine with me is a wonderful Nigerian novelist called Chibundu Onuzo. She wrote this short story called Sunita, and I was asked to read it. I'd never met her. I was asked to read it for, in the UK, BBC Radio 3. So just the actress for hire, if you like. I remember reading this story and being like, this resonates so greatly with me. What an extraordinary piece of writing, and should it not have a wider audience? And then I bumped in. No, Chibundu was doing a talk, a writer's talk at the British Library. And my brain just clicked as I was in the audience. And I was like, this is the person that wrote that short story. So I went up and fangirled her and was like, yo, it's me. And she knew my voice because she'd never met me, but she'd heard me read the short story. And she was like, you're Joan. And I was like, you're Chibundu. And that's how our collaboration began. So I really recommend fangirling people that you adore, because sometimes it pays off. And so we started collaborating on lots of different ideas. And initially we started working on her debut novel. We got to sort of halfway through the screenplay, and we actually had to stop because it was so hard. Like, we'd bitten off more than we could chew. And then my brain clicked in. And I was like, that short story that I read has stayed with me ever since I read it. And I think for me, it's filmic. For me, it deserves a wider audience. I've got an idea about how we might interpret that and translate it to screen. Would you be up for us co-writing a screenplay on it together? And so that was the journey. And we went back and forth, and there are moments in it that are so different from what is in the short story. There's some of the dialogue that is in the short story. We just had to create this piece for screen in a new and imagined way, really believing that we had never seen this story on screen. And for that, we couldn't understand why. And therefore, all of the impetus went into making the film that you saw.
Man, talking about the story and just how much it resonated, there were so many great films selected for ABFF. And as you know, ABFF is, it's our Sundance. It's Sundance for the Black or minority filmmaker. And when I saw your film, and like I said, all of them are wonderful, with wonderful actors, known and emerging. But when I saw Dilapo is Fine, the story resonated so much with me as a Black woman working in the real world, and just working in any facet, because I hadn't seen our story and our journey of, at base, self-acceptance of self. And not even, and parts of that, honestly, I couldn't completely relate to as an American Black woman, obviously of African descent and close African descent, but for those who are immigrants to, whatever country they're from, those things that were taught, those gems that were given, just saying your full name, no, I don't want to be called Keisha. I want to be called LaKesha, or I don't want to be called Iya. I want to be Joan Iyiola. Like those things were just so powerful to me. So in making this film, because this is not your first film, your first film was Denial, correct, in 2016?
Yeah, that was the first thing that I acted in. This is the
Okay.
first thing that I've made. Yeah, from scratch.
Awesome, awesome. So tell us a little bit about, because you are an actress and writer, and that was where, you know, where you started first. But what was that transition period like for you to decide, hey, I want to create, you know, this work of art on camera?
Yeah, it's such an interesting one because it's you sometimes arrive in these titles and you just had never thought about it before. So when I started in the industry, if you told me I'd also be a writer and a producer, and who knows, maybe in time a director, I would have said, I'm just here I want to act. That's what I want to do. And I love acting, and I think I'll always do it. But I've sort of picked up these other skill sets along the way, and I just hadn't named them. I run an arts organisation in the UK called the Monobox that supports emerging talent coming into theatre and film. And that taught me how to become a producer. And one of the things that we have, a sort of annual new writing course that we run, is bringing in ethnically diverse writers. So I've worked with so many writers that are looking at the genesis of an idea, helping them shape it, giving feedback, but I'd never actually done it myself. And I think the journey that has led me here is probably just one of necessity. You know, in so much of what I've done as an actor, I have loved so many of the roles that I've played. But what you don't see is how many roles I turned down.
Yeah.
How many roles are not written for Black women to show all of the facets that we know Black women have. You know, and it was getting to a point in the career where your career is moving a certain way and you're still feeling like you're sort of banging your head against a brick wall, or you can't quite break through the parts that you absolutely should be doing. Or people are just saying to you that, of course, that part would be wonderful, but no one's written it. And so I was hearing that quite a lot. And I think it came from a real place of frustration. And I'll tell you this story. I auditioned for a number of things, and in a week, I got rejections from them all.
Yeah.
And I had been told my feedback from each of them, and they were all white men of a certain age that were the directors of the project. And they had all said, the feedback had come back to my agent that, we love Joan, we think she's great, but we just wanted to go for somebody who's a little bit more fragile as a human. And in a roundabout way, they had all said something like that. So when I first heard it, it was, you sort of laugh and you sort of go, well, obviously I don't want to work with you, that's totally fine. But when you have a sequence of them happen 3 times on a Wednesday, Thursday, and a Friday, when you sort of have that emerge, you go, whoa, this now feels like an attack and an affront of not just me, but people that look like me. And I think that was a catalyst for me. Because the anger that I felt after that, because it took a while, it takes quite a lot to knock an actor because we're so resilient, that we're so used to getting up and going again. But this one really went for me. And I remember my mum calling my wonderful mother, and she said to me, your work doesn't belong in one sphere. Your work is global. So your work doesn't belong in one building. Your work is deserved to be seen by everybody. And she, you know the way that mums do, just like picked you up and was just like, think bigger. Somehow, because of the environment that we're in, and particularly when we're in the industry, sometimes it narrows our vision because we see the paths that have led certain people to achieve what they've done, and it doesn't always allow for imagination to come through. In that moment, my mum sort of poked through and it opened up my imagination again. And I think the very next thing that I did was start this conversation with Chibundu to start writing this screenplay. And I just never really charted that that's what had happened. But these moments of the new always come from something that you want to change. And so that's been my journey, and it's been a wonderful journey, and I'm learning all of the time. I'm in new spheres, talking to new people, talking to people globally about this film. So I'm finding it incredibly rewarding, and I don't know where the future goes, but I'm excited.
Oh, you should be. I think the future is very bright, Joe. I think the future is very bright. I mean, you said a mouthful. There are so many times, as a fellow artist in front and behind the camera, there's so many times and so many sets I've been on where they'll tell me, well, we just want you to be angry, or roles that I haven't gotten because they wanted the role of, a widow whose husband was just killed the night before, to be angry instead of feel the grief and emotion. And I always play to the emotion of a character. And it's almost as if people don't fully understand that women outside of a certain race, we experience all levels of emotions as well. It's not only anger, it's not only frustration. There's this stereotype of the mad Black woman that I'm excited that people like you and so many others are, that fire in them is sparked to say, no, this isn't only who we are. There's so many levels. There's beauty and vulnerability. And yes, women of color, Black women, are vulnerable. Yes, we do have, emotions of tenderness. We can be tender. We can be loving. We can experience all of these things that we've seen so many other, on stage artists show and emote and experience through stories. We have those same experiences. So I'm just very excited to see that people are accepting that, artists like yourself are able to, make that leap and make that transition and say, no, these are the type of stories I want to tell, because this is the truth of who we are. We are not just one thing. And even when I think about, I've always been, in the later half of my life, I've been more curious and more interested in the British accent, honestly, and in the culture in Britain. What would you say is one of the biggest factors to people, why do you think people don't understand? I have never seen British life and Black British life, particularly of what I've learned about, the huge African, demographic, African Brits there. It's never portrayed on television in series, even background talent. If I watch a British show, it's, all one thing, and there's never other colors or other people. Why do you think that is?
I mean, it's so interesting as well, because when you're in your place of home, you know all the things that you come up against. But it's on this point, I listened to a wonderful interview yesterday with Reggie Yates in the UK. He's sort of a wonderful presenter, writer, producer. He kind of does everything. Michaela Cole, and they were obviously talking about I May Destroy You. And in that, they were talking about the fact that so many people from America had said to Michaela, I didn't even know Black people looked like that in the UK. I hadn't seen Black people, Black British people on screen in this way before. And when I heard it, when they were discussing it, I'm like, this is wild, because that's our world. Like what she showcased, I know all of the places that everybody's walking around. I know those people. I know how, the immigrant families and the white working class people have come together. It's that's our world. To sort of really hear that it's not reaching outside of our little island is a huge shock. And there are so many reasons, we're talking about the UK and the US here. There's a lot that we have to answer for, isn't there, with race and colonialization and the British Empire. There's a lot there that I believe we are just beginning to untap. There was a statistic the other day, and it said something in the vein of the Tudors. You get to study the Tudors at a particular time in school in history. So in history or whatever, when you look at the cycle, you look at this particular period and you go, this is when the Tudors existed in the UK. And then it's like 82% of school children get taught about that. And then the stats were about 7.2% of students get taught about the British Empire and actually what the British Empire did. So there is a story that we've been told, and I guess what helps me as a sort of storyteller is that I go, and again, what you were talking about in terms of Black women, I get really excited because I go, there's so much more that you have yet to see. When we talk about history, we talk about the British Empire, what about, there's a wonderful documentary that I'm watching on Netflix at the moment called African Colony, and it's looking at Nigeria specifically and Britain's involvement. And then you go, what about showcasing that story alongside the history we've been told? Then we have history. At the moment, we only have one story. And it's the same for, Black women. What about, I know on screen, we have seen so few representations of our stories and our experiences. And I feel so excited to showcase more, because it isn't really hard for us to do that. It's not like we're having to go, let me just think about what you haven't seen before. You haven't seen most of it.
Yeah, haven't seen any of it.
You've probably seen like 10%.
Yeah.
So there's the whole 90% in all of our pockets that we can just showcase if you open up space and allow us to sit alongside you in those spaces. And perhaps we're beginning to get there. And I will try my hardest to keep excavating space for all of us to come through.
Oh yeah, I think just as a world, things are changing. Because the demographic is different across the world, we can't be denied any longer. Women, minority women, Black women, we can't be denied any longer. So I am very hopeful and very optimistic as well, Joan, about, these stories being told and the beauty and the differences of these stories, because there is so much beauty in the differences of cultures and, things, languages. There's just so much beauty in it, and there's so much to be said and told. I do want to talk about your acting side of it. So we'll scroll back to 2018. In 2018, so you were the first Nigerian British actress to play in The Duchess of Malfi. Tell us a little bit about what that casting experience was like for you. And was that one of your first major roles that you booked as an actress?
So yeah, in the theatre, it was my first lead. It was my first lead. I'd sort of been in the theatre prior to that for probably about 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
This and in wonderful parts that I'd loved, but this was the first lead, and what a part it was! Like a classical play written by John Webster, performing at the Royal Shakespeare Company. And I remember when I was first offered the role, I was very confused. But I think you've got this wrong. And partly because I know that institution and I'd worked there before.
Yeah.
And everybody that had played the Duchess of Malfi was now a dame and very white. I was very confused as to what the director was looking for.
Wait, sorry. So you didn't audition for that role? Did you not?
No, I did audition for it, but I went through the process and I did the recall. But I think something in my gut hadn't really pictured myself playing the role because of the inherited history, I guess. And the wonderful director, Maria Åberg, she's a Swedish director, works here and globally. I had worked with her before, and she was wonderful. She was really, really brilliant at just stripping everything back, all of the preconceived ideals about what this character should be, and was like, she's you. Whatever you want to bring to this is what we will be making for this piece. And that was wonderful. I remember, the Duchess is a force to be reckoned with. She is head of state, if you sort of imagine her like that. And so I was really interested in exploring what the public and the private is for a Black woman, and I guess you'll sort of see that in my work. You'll see it in Dolapo as fine. Like, what is this art? What is the armor that we have to wear for the world to accept us? And then what happens when you strip that back and you're at home? I've got my headscarf on, and me, if I'm not leaving the house, I've got a headscarf on.
Right.
I'm not doing my hair unless I have to be out somewhere, So all of these things that are so specific towards me, I was able to put into the character. And there was a moment, which I call my Viola Davis moment, where I took off the wig, because this Duchess had beautiful wigs.
Oh, you
I
got
took off the wig when we were in a home setting, because we were in a private setting, and then something really vulnerable happens to her in this space. And I said, well, for that to happen, she has to remove her armor. So I remember taking the wig off in the first time that we did it in front of an audience, and the gasps. And what was amazing about it was that the Black people were like, whoa, we have never seen that on stage. You could feel it. And also they were like, why are you showing what happens when we're don't show us that space. And in the same vein, you could feel white people that aren't Black, also recognizing what that process is. Even if they didn't understand it, they knew the enormity of that, and for somebody to sort of approach them in that home space. So these are all things that are just akin to you and I.
Yeah.
And being able to infuse that into my art was a huge turning point for me, I think. Also, I remember times where we would be in a rehearsal room, and this play was full of, maybe we had 4 female characters and maybe something like 18 men or something like that. And all of the time we had all these men trying to sort of intimidate the Duchess, but she wasn't standing for it. The problem is that me, as Joan, wasn't used to being told, be in centre stage. Because as Black women, we navigate, right? We support, we're here, what do you need? I'm here. So there's all of that. And I remember that the director, Maria, saying to me, stay in centre position and do not move, and they will work around you. And that for me was like, it was alien. It was really interesting. It was really alien. And then I had to do another session with the movement director, Aisha Tashkiran, and she's wonderful. And she just made me wear the shoes that the Duchess wears and stomp around the room and just say mine with every stop. So this land I stand on is mine. This 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 is mine. I own it all. And again, that was huge, because I just never sat in that space and felt free to do that in the UK as a Black woman, in all of the parts that I played. Even though we were still in imagination territory, it was so critical for perhaps the journey that I am now on, and I'm so grateful for it. But yeah, I love that role.
How well, now I really want to see it. I hope
maybe we'll revive it, who knows.
Maybe you'll revive it or let us stream it, because we all miss theater. Oh my heart right now, I was thinking about it. I miss the stage, I miss theater. But how spiritually powerful is that, to just put the shoes on? I love what you said about walking and saying, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. You know, something that we really have to keep in mind outside of, these restrictions and these barriers and these walls that the world puts up for us and tells us you can't have what's beyond this point, is stepping back in our own power and the power that the Lord gives us, and saying, this is mine. I can have this, even though I don't see it. And I do, as you tell that story 2 years before Dolapo is mine, it seems very spiritual to me that you once, you were chosen and booked that role, that type of role particularly, and the process that you did in doing that. I always feel like theater is such a spiritual space for me. All of it is spiritual, but theater is just, I just love it so much. It's just so different, because you really get to just be present in the process, because the process is so much more strenuous and longer. But yeah, just to walk and say, this is mine. I mean, Joan, I just feel like that really set the stage for you.
Yeah, maybe it did, huh?
And I think that's something that we have to do, and we encourage our artists. This is a show that is created for the artists in mind, those who are, still emerging, and those who are even, at this particular level of success, as we like to call it, but are still, working and striving and seeking these new opportunities. You still have to walk in that confidence and that oneness that even though I can't see it, even though the world is shut down, even though Broadway is closed until 2021 and Hollywood is opening up but happened to shut down and opening up and happened to shut down, this is still mine. What is yours? What is for you. And I think when people listen to your story today, when they look and see the things that you're doing and that you have done, it's very clear. It's very clear. And I'm really excited to see that. I hope you guys revive it. Please let us know.
My brain ticking. I'm like, I would love to revive it.
Yeah.
We started bringing it to New York at one point. So look, let's see. I would definitely revive it, because also there's what I love about when you do a show is that there's always, you're inspired by what is happening in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so much has happened since that time to the world and for Black women. So I know in myself, I don't know what would come out, but there would be a difference in the interpretation just based on the time that, say, now we find ourselves in. So maybe we will.
And if you do, you never know. If we revive it in other places, you know, I think maybe you would be equipped to even direct it. You never know. You never know what God is. God is so amazing. You never know. Just throw that out there in the universe and see what happens. But so you trained at the British Old Vic Theatre School and then went to the Reading Law at Cambridge University and your alumni of NYT. So talk to us a little bit, because like I said, we do have artists that listen and are trying to figure out how to navigate their professional journeys in entertainment. So talk to us about the transition from schooling to working professionally. What was that like for you?
Super interesting, actually. And so, and the way that, in terms of like my timeline, after school where I got my A levels, I then went to university. So I went to Cambridge University and I studied law. And I have Nigerian parents, and so education is everything. And so that was a big thing in itself, to sort of, you know, Nigerians, they're all artists, really. They could be a financier and have a music production company on the side. They could be a doctor, and in their spare time, they're writing science fiction novels. Like, Nigerians just do that. So to say out loud that you would like to be an actor and do that solely is kind of madness. And I kind of knew that that was the world I was stepping into. But I remember having a family friend saying to me, I was young, I was probably about 15 or 16, and she said to me, I can see something's happening here. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, I can see something's happening. And I'm just going to tell you to be self-sufficient. I know your family. I know what their values are, and you do. So something's going to happen, and you're just going to need to find your self-sufficiency, because you're going to want to do something that they have never seen nor are going to understand. And I think that really stayed with me. At the time, I sort of fobbed it off. But when people come into your life like that, you do remember them, even if it's 5 years later that the penny drops. They suddenly go, you were here to give me that lesson. So when I left at my graduation, all of my friends' parents had seen me act at Cambridge, because you could act so much there as much as your degree, and I loved it for that. And so they'd seen, it was quite clear to them that I was going to become an actor. My poor parents were just like, great, here's law, become a barrister, we go. And it was in at the graduation party, my friend's parents turned to my dad and went, Dad, how do you feel? I'm like, Dad, had like tears in his eyes, and was like, I know, she's not going to do law. It's just like, this is graduation. I'm graduating in law. Come on, give me some props. But he was right. He knew at that point that I was on a pathway for something else. And so then I applied to drama schools in London, and I applied to 4 in my final year studying law. And I got onto the wait list of so many of them, but I didn't get in. And so I landed in London, having had my law degree, knowing that I wanted to act. And I'd done the National Youth Theatre, which is something that you do in the summer sometimes throughout your teens. But I'd gone from all of this structure to not really knowing what to do now. And I was conditioned with structure, you know, I was sort of saying, you get up at this time, you do this, you work in this way and you will achieve this. Whereas the creative industry is absolutely not that. There is no rule book, there is no structure. And I remember coming out and going, okay, so I got a job that paid my bills and allowed me to move to London with my friends. The self-sufficiency coming into play there. I set up a theatre company with some friends from a few universities. We also like, okay, we'd love to still keep doing this. How do we do it? And then I applied to drama school again, and I said to myself, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it properly this time, as opposed to pick up any book and feel that I could play that role. And so I got I found a couple of mentors. I practiced the speech. I didn't just do it in my bedroom. I really researched the role and the reason for my choice. And I immediately got into the Bristol Old Vic. And then I could do some of the other journeys, and I started auditioning for them. But in my heart, I went, actually, I think it is Bristol that I'd really, really love to go to. 2 years of that, and that's an up and down time anyway, because I've had an education which is based on academia, and now you're giving me vocational training. And so my academic brain wants to dissect the text, and they're just asking you to like, oh, be free, like I remember a dance teacher saying to me, get rid of your ology. She'd always say, anyone that did agree had a something-ology. She'd like, get rid of your ology. And I'd be like, no, this is my very currency, no? So that was really interesting, because I had to make space for another part of myself, to sit into this creative space. And then you leave drama school. And again, you're back into this situation of, now what? What am I going to do? Apparently I've been to one of the best drama schools in the country, but I've got a great agent. I was very, very fortunate to get a great agent when I left, but what am I going to do? And so you audition and audition and audition and audition. And the first 6 months to a year, the most soul destroying. You feel like you're getting close every time, but then somebody, understandably, with more of a profile and way more experience than you gets the part. And then I would start to see all of the friends around me fall into a version of a depression, one by one, because of this system. Yeah. And in my gut as well, and maybe that's because there's just like an innate fighter inside of me, I was always thinking, this is not right. Like, what is going on? Like, there is a responsibility that the industry has to not let really talented people just fall by the wayside. Mm. And then I set up the Monobox with my best friend, who's a movement director and choreographer. And the Monobox that I mentioned earlier is a space where you can just continually train. And the other part of the Monobox is that we wrote to all of the people that we admired and had worked with, and we asked them to donate a play to a talented young actor. And it had to be something that was a memory for them. You know, the first play that they did or directed, or the best play they ever saw. And they write on the inside cover the reason for their choice and a note to the reader. And sometimes they will tab their favorite speech or scene in that play. And we were doing 3 jobs to sort of pay the bills. But then every time I'd come home, I'd be sent another book by a massive actor that I love and adore. Cut forward to now, we have over 4,000 plays in that collection. And it's a huge resource tool that then made us plan lots of different workshops around it. And our aim was just basically to keep emerging talent going, to keep them learning, to keep them, to almost provide a structure and not be so mythical about how people become actors and what that is. And in the same vein, we were always inviting people to run the workshops that we admired. Like, we weren't looking at people that were just running workshops to pay the bills. We were like, you have done this amazing film. Would you mind coming to meet these wonderful participants who want access to people like yourself, and you want to find the next bright young thing? So let's explore something new together. So the engagement between both facilitating the participants is one where everybody is getting something out of the situation. And I think when I set that up, perhaps I was no longer desperate for the industry. Mm. Perhaps when I walked into a room, having done my work, and running this organization is a constant state of inspiration. Yeah. Because I've got all of the people coming up under me who are telling me how things should change. And then I've got all of the wonderful people that we're inviting in, who, when you hear them speak, is like therapy, inspiration, makes you get up and do something as soon as you finish that session with them. So I sort of created my own tribe, I guess, my own community. And that's still going 8 years on and has become this huge beast, this mini empire. But I think if I were to sort of say to in a long-winded answer to your question, is that when you find something that you can control within this industry, when you find something that really understands the value that you have to play, some of the other things answer themselves, because your body is much calmer, your mind is fizzled with creativity, and you really know who you are. So when you go into a role, you've got ideas to suggest, and you can also say no to roles when you know that it doesn't match your mission or what you feel that you're here to do. And that's not for everybody. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can set that up.
Yeah.
But really learning in those early days and holding firm to the things that have brought you here and help you remind you why you want to do the thing that it is that you're doing are really key markers, whether you put them around your room on like visualization boards or post-it notes, whether you're constantly telling a friend or talking about a great film that you've seen in great detail for hours on end, constantly remind yourself about why you do what you do. And maybe that answers some part of how I am here today, I guess.
No, I think that is very, very helpful, especially for emerging artists, because actors, they're one of the few pieces of the whole production model of any production, stage, film, TV, that has to wait. Their opportunity to create comes with the character, but they don't have the character without the writer. And then they don't have the job without the producer and the director and the casting director. So you're very right, Joan. Everybody can't, own necessarily. Everybody is not made to be an owner or a director as you are, as we are, but everyone is a creative in this industry. If you are working in this industry, you are a creative. And the advantages of social media right now for showing your talents cheaply with a cell phone, showing your talent, showing the things that you can do, coming up with skits. Many people I'm noticing, I don't have a TikTok account, but they do TikTok stories and kind of show, like, they reenact different popular scenes, comedic scenes or dramatic, and they're still able to creatively showcase what they can do, especially during this time where things are so different in the world. Be encouraged, number one, by finding out what your purpose is, as you said, because that will keep you grounded as an actor, as you're continually, waiting to get picked. But knowing your purpose will help you in navigating that world and not finding your identity in your job, because it's your job. It's not who you are. It's not going to relegate your self-worth or your talent or your capabilities, because sometimes it comes down to your sellability as this person's sister or this person's mother. The casting director may say, Joan was awesome, but could she be LaKesha's sister? I don't know. Like, it's about look. They're trying to match up. Does this person look like they could be in this family? And depending upon the type of show or film it is, that's a very hard position for a lot of people, who are behind the camera. So it may have nothing to do with how great you are. You might have been the best person for the role, but some other factors may have come into play. So, you just have to stay grounded and stay encouraged in that purpose and be able to adapt like water. Did you watch the Bruce Lee documentary?
It's so good.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I didn't know, I'm also, we're the same age. So I didn't know that much about Bruce Lee, admittedly. My parents love Bruce Lee. And so we watched it together. And when I learned about, how dedicated he was to his craft and his art, and how he was able to adapt to his circumstances and stay creatively minded, and then hence create opportunities for himself. It was amazing. And transitioning and learning how to transition is going to be the power that artists have, because each and every one of us, no matter whether you own something or not, you are a creative. So never forget that. Even if you're, that phone isn't ringing for you, you can create something and put it out there and showcase to the next person. So in talking about creating, you started Appetine Productions.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about that. And when did you launch it? Was it just launched in 2019?
Yeah, 2018, end of 2018.
Okay.
It was the vehicle to do the short film.
Okay.
So, for often in the UK, I don't know what it's like in the US, but when you do sort of funding applications or you apply for something, there has to be a production company behind it. And I quite quickly suddenly thought, I don't want to give this project to another production company. This is our story,
Yeah.
So not really knowing what we were doing, we set up Appetine Productions, which means storyteller in Yoruba, which is the tribe that I am from and my family are from in Nigeria. And then we spoke about it. So I set it up with Joe Bell, and he sort of works in the industry and outside of the industry, which is really great for any creative, because what we learn through this is, as creatives, we often talk about projects in a certain way, but you have to be able to communicate that either to financiers or to people, to general audience members that are not necessarily in our industry. So it's a wonderful relationship of ebbing and flowing between understanding operations and logistics and learning that from him, and also me just chucking lots of ideas that I've got, but also people that we would love to celebrate and share their stories and help elevate their stories. So the short film was the first thing that we did with the production company. And we spoke a lot about what is our mission here. And a lot of the things that came up were, centering characters that are normally on the fringes of stories, making them front and center. We used a tagline for the production company, the stories we tell ourselves, and how critical they are, and how we can avoid the cycle if the stories are true to who we are. And that sort of sent us on a whole range of looking at genres and looking at stories or hopeful figures or humor. Hope and humor are big things that we explore in our production company. And now we have 3 TV series ideas in development that are projects and ideas that I've generated. And then we have a feature film and another TV series of writers that I'm bringing in, because I don't want to write them all. That's exhausting.
You don't have time to write them all, Joan. You don't have time for that.
But I just know so many wonderful writers, and I know that part of my mission and part of the reason that I'm here is to open that door and bring people along with me. So I'm very excited about those projects as well. And we'll see, I'm collaborating. At the moment, I'm meeting everybody. I'm speaking to everybody. I am messaging people whose stuff I might have seen on Instagram and gone, you're amazing, could we have a conversation? I am asking people who have way more experience than me to say, because we're now all on Zoom, could you jump on Zoom and can we answer some questions? So it's a really rich time. It's very, very fast learning. And I would really love this company to be a leading Black-owned production company in the UK. And globally, let's put it out there. Let's say globally as well, right?
Don't limit it, yeah.
Don't limit it, because we have so few Black women in these positions.
Yeah.
And it's very clear what will happen if we will allow a few more of them into that sphere. So I'm really learning.
No, I love that you said in the UK, because right now, some of our top actors, as you know, nationwide, the Daniel Kaluuyas of the world.
Mm-hmm. He's a friend of mine, yeah.
Oh, wow. This is Oprah. He's very talented, and he has just, he's just full force over here, everywhere. LaKesha Wright, she's British as well.
Also somebody that I've worked with. That they're all of these, that's my community.
Wow, I mean, and so much talent, John Boyega, there's so much
Mhm.
talent coming, over to the US. But like you said, the pool of talent, you guys have it there. So to be planted in London and still be global, I think that would be amazing because everyone, Americans are like, ooh, we look at other countries and we're like, ooh, that's so cool, and we would love to work there, and vice versa. You guys look over here and say, hey, we would love to work here. But to have a Black-owned production company at the highest level there, I think is going to be and is already groundbreaking for people there. So how do you do your casting for those who are interested, or do you guys do more so of like handpicked casting, or do you have open casting calls for people?
A real mixture. And I think because the casting is so important to me because I'm an actor.
Yeah.
So, and how we do that process is incredibly important because as actors, we know when we haven't felt valued or we haven't felt that the search has been that wide. For Dolapo is fine. For the younger characters in particular, that was a complete throw the net as far as I can and see who comes through. So not only the arts organisation I run, I went to agencies, I went to youth theatres. I just said, who have you got? Who do you have for this role? And I mean, you can see the performance that Doyin Ajiboye gives as Dolapo is out of this world. This is also her first screen project.
Wow.
So you go, this person is like, she's on. And how brilliant. And I remember when she came into the audition room and we all just sat there and afterwards we went, yeah, because you dream about somebody inhabiting a role, and sitting on the other side of the table for the first time. I was going, wow, every Black woman that came in to audition for that role killed it. And what you learn, particularly in terms of what you were saying, LaKesha, is that it's about who's right for the role.
Yeah.
And right for this version of this story. Yeah. So I really love showcasing it far and wide. But then we had people that I had worked with. So there was Gina McKee, who's the interviewer right at the end of the film, who's really known globally for her amazing talent. And it's a bit of a mentor figure to me. And one of the reasons that I asked her to, she is somebody who normally would never do a role like that. She's so big. But when I sort of said, this is my first thing, this is what I'm doing, I said, I don't care what I'm doing in it, I'm happy to be a part of it. But you learn from people like that. You learn their etiquette on set. They're able to just whisper small things into your ear. So really balancing, like, people that have never been on set before with that experience is something I'm really interested in. But from a casting perspective, I think for the next project, we'll just be innovative. We have socials at our disposal, and I'm seeing how brilliantly that is being used. Yeah. We have a wonderful team that are really interested in who's coming up, or not always showcasing the same faces on screen, but those that are right for the story. So I just keep on a lookout and follow us on the socials, keep a track of what we're doing. I'm sure when we're ready for the next project, we'll be making an announcement in a big way.
Oh yeah. So tell us, where can people see Dolapo is Fine? I know that it was just in a British festival. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was just at the 64th BFI's London Film Festival. And so that's kind of it's our biggest British film festival, I would say. And we won 35 shorts in that, and we were part of the UK Focus cohort. And that was wonderful, from premiering at ABFF to then coming back to home soil for the BFI London Film Festival. But as an extraordinary experience in itself. This is the first time I'm actually saying it sort of publicly out to the world. But from Friday, and this is UK and Ireland specific, the short film is going to be on Netflix. So Netflix have just licensed the film, which is just amazing. So it sort of says coming soon, coming this week. And that's fantastic because, one of my big heroes and people that I really look up to is Ava DuVernay. I think what she's doing with not only her work as a director, but with Array now is innovative and thinks about women and people of color and not following old pathways and constantly creating new. And one of the things that she talks about, which I love, is say what you like about any of these platforms, but what it does is it democratizes filmmaking and cinema. And it means that people can watch them. The people that you are making this for are able to watch them, are able to watch what you've created. Because sometimes the film festivals can be alienating. I know loads of people, you know, I can say a certain film festival to my family and they'll go, great, good for you. And then I will say Netflix and they'll go, wow, that's very cool. You know, and so it's about really making sure that the work reaches the people. So I'm so excited by that. And the other thing is that because of ABFF, it will be on HBO. HBO will license Dolapo's Fine for something like 2 years or so. So that will be coming up shortly, and we'll be sharing it on socials as to when the dates are confirmed.
Yes. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing that first with us. That is major. And shout out to Netflix. I love what they're doing with they've really been tapping into the African market, the South African market, and just kind of all over. And I just feel like they are the independent filmmaker's dream.
Yeah.
And there was a column that I saw, a political animation, and it had the Hollywood sign being taken down, and you've probably seen it, and the Netflix sign, you haven't seen it? And the Netflix sign being put up. But when you think about the state of the world right now, how quickly things are changing, the changes in theaters, where people go to see and view new films, streaming is now. And streaming, you know, is something that we love, and it has given so many people the chance to see great work like yours and so many other Hollywood releases. So people can connect with you on Instagram at Joan _Iyiola. That's Iyiola. And we have that off the screen here. Joan.Iyiola. And then Appetine Productions at APATAN _productions on Instagram. So yeah, follow Joan, connect with her. Tell her, you know, how her experience has, you know, inspired you. And Joan, I am just so excited and happy for you, and just honored to have you on. Because like I said, I love Dilapo is Fine, and I hope that your other play gets reopened and revived after hearing about it, because it just sounds amazing. But, you know, here you have fans and friends here in Indianapolis at Loving Life, and we just want to congratulate you on all you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. Thank you, LaKesha.
Yes, thank you. And you guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of In the Room with Loving Life podcast. Thank you to our guest, Joan. And we hope you guys are inspired by this podcast to walk in purpose and live on purpose in your entertainment journey. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.